Okay. Hello and welcome to our next episode, Live with the Author, and it's a great pleasure to go over the ocean, but talking to an old friend from Europe. But while you're a globe trotter, so originally, where are you from originally?
I'm from Syria originally.
Okay, so then studied in Germany, and now your dental journey has brought you to the United States.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. So, and how do you feel in America now?
Well, I have to say, with all the issues that we are experiencing globally, it's still okay. And if I can just speak about the state here of Massachusetts, I mean, they have it in good control in terms of the pandemic, the cases. And for us at the school or at the university, they have implemented a testing for our faculty, residents, students for the COVID, and this is happening twice a week, which is a good thing. Keeping us also in control of the whole situation.
Okay, so let's jump into our discussion. So we had already talked to other authors of our next issue of the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry, entirely dedicated to treatment planning. And we have already seen different approaches from Coachman, from Galip Gürel, from Stefano Grachis. And now we are eager to find out what Wael Att is telling us about his way of treatment planning. And I think let's start right into the topic. You, compared to the others, you're the young guy.
Seriously?
So my first question to you is, when did you start with digital dentistry?
Well, it has been a long journey, I have to say. When I started in Freiburg, that was 20 years ago, and with Jörg Stroop, and he's my mentor and the whole team, I started to see the interests, or actually the implementation since the early days of digital technologies. It started with guided implant surgery, where we used to take the CT imaging, not the CBCT, and then we started to map and then plan accordingly and manufacture a handmade surgical guide according to this. And with the implementation of the virtual treatment planning software, then we moved to the next level. We started utilizing the software, outsourcing, producing, and then I got more and more interested in the whole thing. And finally, we ended up by using the complete digital workflow, or the whole spectrum of the digital workflow.
So then this whole thing was this the reason why you went to the United States?
Actually, no, this is not the reason that I went to the United States. It's a matter of opportunity that was for me to come here to the States and become the distinguished school and with a renowned name worldwide, and become a department chair. That was the interesting for me. And at the same time, it was a challenge that I accepted, that we would like to move to the next level in terms of implementation of digital technologies and spreading the workflows across the school at both levels, the pre-doctoral education and the postdoctoral education.
So basically, you brought all your experience for over the last 20 years also to the United States. How was the situation there? Because if we look at the history of CAD/CAM dentistry, of a lot of digital technologies are based in Europe and then went over to other countries. So I'm talking about the Cerex system, I'm talking about the Dure, I'm talking about Van der Zeel. A lot of people that were involved in CAD/CAM and digital dentistry already in the 1970s. Beside Diane Rico, who is from the States, but basically it was a large wave of digital dentistry coming from Europe and then going back or over to America. So how do you see this digital wave going around the globe?
I mean, the development is for sure started in Europe and continued to be in Europe. And the whole new innovations in terms of acquisition devices speaking specifically about intraoral scanners, they continue to come from Europe. But if you look at the global picture, and unfortunately, this is the sad truth, only 5% or something around that number have implemented the digital technologies globally. This includes Europe as well. And I have to say, when I came here to the US, it hasn't been different than what I have experienced in Europe. There are few institutions, whether in Europe or in the States, they are at the most front in terms of implementation of digital technologies, but the vast majority, they are not implementing this simply because of first thing is the finances. From a financial perspective, technology is expensive. And the second thing is going out of the comfort zone and dedicating time to it.
Yeah, so this brings me to the topic of digital dentistry, also related to your article. So, so maybe you show us a short insight. So you for many of us, you're the digital dentist, and knowing that 95% of dentists are not digital, are still analog. So how much of your treatment planning is really digital, and how much is still analog if you look at the whole process or of your workflow of treatment planning as you use it today?
Well, I don't think that I can call myself a digital dentist because our profession is hand. We have to be working with the patients with our hands and implementing what we plan on the computer screen and transferring into the patient's mouth. I'm a prosthodontist, perioprosthodontist, and I'm focusing on digital technologies, and I try to implement as much as possible with simply three reasons: to become faster, more accurate, and efficient in terms of the reason why we're implementing the digital technologies. Now, in terms of the whole workflow, as I mentioned in the book and also in the paper, it is divided out of three components. The first one is data acquisition, and I'm not the only one, but there are a lot of other colleagues that are using, for example, intraoral scanners. They're using CBCT devices. They're taking videos, photos, in order to capture as much information as possible from the patient in order to go to the next step, which is the treatment planning. And we haven't been doing something different before. I mean, since the moment I joined Freiburg, I remember back in the old days, we started with these DSLRs that were not only huge, but they were connected. If you remember, Alessandro, and I recall your lecture when you came to Freiburg about 20 years ago, and you gave us lecture about digital photography, and you were one of the first people who are going to promote, or you are utilizing the digital DSLRs at that time, and everybody was afraid to adapt. But now you see all of us were using the digital DSLRs, and now we're moving to the mirrorless cameras. So it's the innovation and the technology is still continuing, but we need to go out of this comfort zone and start to explore new things. So when I go back to Freiburg, we had these slides, remember the slides that we had to take the photo and wait for 3 days to know whether the photo is good or not until we get the slide. The film is developed and we get the slide back. Today, with the digital cameras, it's so easy to take it, verify the quality of the picture immediately on the spot, and if it's not good, you can take another one or repeat it. And the same thing now. This is the goal of the whole digital workflow. Faster, more accurate, and more efficient. And I started to explore this in many workflows related to the digital, and we have seen that it does reduce the chair time. It does reduce the exposure to the patient, which is very significant nowadays in terms of the COVID, in terms of infection control or something like this, and also is an ideal communication tool. But I go back, we haven't done something different before. Now we're utilizing the digital technologies to do the same what we were doing before.
Yeah. So because reading your article and also reading your book, I see that you're trying to just implement new tools without really changing that much in the workflow or in the history of how you start with the first visit of the patient, taking all the records, making the interpretation of the records, doing a diagnosis, and then develop a treatment plan. Because I want to point on when the first discussion with Christian Coachman, he's a lot into emotion. Galip Gurel is a lot into how the face looks. So they're trying to find different approaches or new approaches. At the end, it's all about restoring missing structure, restoring a smile, giving lost tissues back to the patient. So, but I see that you have more the realistic approach. Don't get me wrong. The other Coachman, Galip Gurel, Stefano Grachis, everybody has their own approach. But when I read your book, when I read your article, you are really trying to do what you have learned, which is a very classical treatment protocol, which I think is still 100% valid, and everybody's doing it, and trying to find the tools on each step to improve your efficiency, to improve your accuracy, to be more efficient also time-wise, and at the end also to save time and money for the patient. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. That is the goal, or the ultimate goal of implementation of the digital tools. Again, as I mentioned, regardless whether we're talking about emotions or something like this, at the end, the patient is coming for us for a reason. Is like to restore missing teeth or to improve the appearance of his or her teeth. And our goal is to take care of capturing all of the details related to the case. And with the digital technologies, it is easy. When you take an intraoral scan and you just enlarge that tooth on the computer screen, you will see more details than when you are just looking with your bare eyes. It's the same thing when we're using our loops when we're treating the patient. This is called high quality dentistry. If these tools are going to help me to provide better high quality dentistry to the patient, I will immediately adapt them. But again, what I see is from my exposure to what the colleagues are doing worldwide, there's a fraction of colleagues that are working on this high level, and there's also like I would say a wall in front of them, the others, to just move to the next step and start going out of the comfort zone and try to, okay, I'm willing to learn, I want to do it, I want to move forward and then become better in this aspect. You have seen yourself also, so many colleagues, if they get an intraoral scanning system to their office and then they just keep it there after a couple of months, and will stay there at the corner as like a monument or something like this that will stay for years, and they're not going to use it simply because they said, well, it didn't work. It's all about learning curve. It's all about going out of the comfort zone, and this is how it works. We have colleagues from Italy that did the same, like they closed their office. Roberto, for example, closed his office and then focused on doing this digital capturing and planning and implementation until he became a master, and he's one of the best now worldwide in this to do it.
Yeah, exactly. The learning curve for creating the passion for what you're doing. So we have talked a lot about passion in our last interviews. So how do you see that passion and digital dentistry? I would expect young dentists that are on social media, on their smartphones 24 hours a day, that they have an easier access to digital technologies. Do you see that? Or because theoretically, with the new generation, we should have a larger number or a higher wave of digital dentists coming up, but I don't see that right now. So where do you see the limitations? So is it only the cost? Is it that it's too expensive, or is the learning curve too long? Or where do you see the obstacles, especially for young colleagues, to not implement digital dentistry in their workflows?
I think the problem, as someone who is working at university, starts from the schools, the basic education that the students are getting. When they are not getting enough exposure to these technologies and they're not being able to interact and see how they function and test it themselves, then they are going to go out from the school. They're going to get busy with establishing their offices, or they're going to go to an office that is already not implementing these technologies. So the whole thing will continue. So if the schools worldwide, they're able to deliver state-of-the-art technologies to their students, exposing them, then it will be a lot easier. And what I noticed with the new generation, it is true that it's easier for them, way easier than already established dentists to adapt the new technology, simply because they have all the gadgets, the phones, the consoles, the whole thing is so easy for them to adapt. And I can give an example of my son. He's 11 years old. I took him to a convention with me in Spain, and it was I just showed him a dynamic navigation system. He didn't know what it is for, and I gave him the handpiece, and suddenly, after less than a minute, he was able to drill and follow that dart system that is embedded in that dynamic navigation system and go exactly where it's supposed to be. This means that it is so easy for them to understand and adapt this technology. But again, you have to create the environment from one hand side for them to be able to go with that technology. And the second thing is the price. It is so expensive to invest and adapt technology or introduce it into your office. But we started to see new modules now. For example, you're not required anymore to buy an intraoral scanner and put it in your office. You pay like 50,000 euros, and then afterwards, after 3 years, this device will become obsolete, meaning that you have to look at the new one. And it's similar to your mobile phone. So it's going to get out. You would like to get a new one with faster software, better processors, better captioning, more accuracy. The companies now started to realize this, that their old business model is not functioning. And here in the States, we have now the leasing option. So you pay monthly for a device that you're going to put in your office. And every year you can swap it with a newer one. Same like with the cars here. In Europe, and I can state Spain specifically, you can rent the intraoral scanner for specific days in a week or a month or something like this. You just pay as you go for a specific period. You don't have to put that a huge amount of money. And I think that this is a good start.
Okay, so yeah, but basically, if you put the numbers, if we calculate, we have 2 million dentists, 5% are using a scanner, so it's a small market for the big companies, and I think that's why the price stays relatively high. And another thing that I have learned over the years is we both know Dentsply Sirona with their CEREC system being on the market for over 30 years. And I really wonder, and maybe you can answer the question as being also a lot into digital dentistry. It looks like developing a scanner is not that difficult. You see a huge amount of scanners on the market. Developing a software to design something also seems relatively easy. But the most difficult point is then doing the restoration. So basically, the number one systems today is still milling restorations out of blocks. And what I have learned over the years is you cannot take scanner A, software B, and milling machine C and make it work. So the crucial part in the CAD/CAM process is the production. If we do it with printers, so if it's additive, it's not an issue. But if it's subtractive, if we are milling, I see that if you take different milling machines and feeding them with the same STL information, you get different results out of the machine. And that's why competitors are still struggling with getting, let's say, Why is there no CEREC copy? Why are there not 10 similar systems on the market? I don't see that. So this, but maybe this is not really. We are going a little bit out of the discussion of treatment planning, but this is an interesting topic to talk about later. So let's go back to treatment planning. So we have the data. So you have talked about intraoral scanner, CBT scan, digital photographs. So now maybe you can show us one or two slides on the workflow you will present in your publication.
Sure. Let me share my screen, and you will be able to see it. Give me 1 second, please. Screen share. There's just 2 monitors. Share screen. I have an issue here. Talking about digital, just give me 1 second because I need to give a permission to the Apple system, and then it should be okay now. Can you see it? No.
Not yet.
Google Chrome. Here we go. Can you see it now?
No, but I can blend in one of your let's say overviews of the article. Maybe you can talk about this.
Yeah, well, thank you for this. And again, it's this is just an overview of the digital workflow in the whole dentistry. If you look at it, as I mentioned before, it starts with data acquisition, meaning that we are going to capture the information from the patient and then using specific tools, let's say whether an intraoral scan, model scan, CBCT or CT, photos, videos, or even a face scanner, which is something that is becoming more and more popular nowadays. And after you have captured the data, you move on to the next step, which is to process this data using specific software, whether it's for ortho, whether it's for process planning or implant planning. And we see that there are some connections between these elements in which, for example, the implant planning is always related to the process planning because we have to plan all our implants in a prosthetically oriented manner. Now, everybody is talking that I'm doing CAD/CAM, thinks that they are doing digital dentistry, but I have to point out clearly that CAD/CAM is one component out of the digital workflow. And you can see here under planning and processing, the computer-aided design is the component that comes into play under this category. Now, what we also discussed or discussing in the paper and also the book is the data merging. You call it data merging, data superimposition, data fusion. The goal of this is to combine different data sets obtained from different devices. Let's say, for example, you have a surface scan from an intraoral scanner. You have a CBCT data sets, and then you have a face scan. When you put all of this using specific algorithms and merge these different data sets, then you are able to create the so-called virtual patient, enhancing thereby the communication, the experience among the treatment team, and also be more accurate, hopefully, in terms of the treatment planning. The last component of the digital workflow is the fabrication and execution. And here we see now the CAMs in play. We have in the planning, processing, and the computer manufacturing under the fabrication and execution. And here we have two major categories. The first one is the subtractive approach, where we going to grind or mill in order to create the object, whether it's a crown or a denture or whatever. Or we have the additive approach, and here we have so many components available on the market. The mostly used components are either the SLS, selective laser sintering. You have the stereolithography, and it was inherently used for the manufacture of large-scale surgical guides. And we have the digital light processing, or DLP. Now, many printers, they are implementing this technology. And last but not least is the 3D printing, which is the new thing that if you are not using 3D printing in your office or dealing with your labs on, you're outdated. But I have to say We do have a lot of issues with 3D printing, and it is similar to the subtractive approach. If you are taking the same STL file and using different printers, you're going to get different results. Even if you are getting the same printer and you are putting the object to be printed in different areas of the build form, printing form, you're going to get different results. So it's all about getting experience among the team. It's not only about the tool. I can give you the best car in the world, and if you don't know how to drive it, it's not going to work. You're going to just hit the wall. So it's the same thing. And that's
Yeah, exactly. So this is what we discussed before. So the production part in the digital workflow is still something that can be improved, or there's potential for improvement. But this is also in the analog things. So if you look at the analog workflow, there are so many things that can go wrong, and at the end, even if we're talking about classic wax up and casting and all this old technology, it's all about having a precise workflow and getting the good result at the end. So basically, what was the goal of the article, and also the goal of the book? Because I think the two are very similar. If we look at the book, so the article basically is an extract, a summary of what you have published in your book about digital dentistry, with quintessence. So, but what is the basic message of or the concept of treatment plan? So you're saying it's the importance of collecting information, of creating the virtual patient out of this data, and then with the correct interpretation, diagnosis, end up with the right treatment? Or how do you see the treatment planning workflow in your strategy?
Now, in terms of the difference between the book and the paper, first, the book goes through the whole digital workflow. Again, all different components are explained and elaborated about in details, whether you're talking about intraoral scanner, CBCT, virtual treatment software, and all of these different components, and there are clinical examples. For the publication or the paper that we have published now, we are going to speak about the workflow or the digital workflow for excessively worn dentition, meaning that if you have a patient with a situation where the teeth are completely worn, how are you going to approach the case, how are you going to acquire the data, how are you going to plan the case, and then how are you going to execute from a digital perspective. And we are going to show in that paper where are the limitations, where we have to say, no, we cannot continue with a complete digital workflow. We have to combine between the analog world and the digital world in order to deliver the treatment for the patient. And I see the biggest issue so far is not the intraoral scan itself or scanning the model. If you do a conventional impression and then you scan a model, that's also a digital approach. But I see is that how you're going to register the situation in a patient-relevant manner. In other words, how are you going to combine or introduce the patient-relevant references and planes into the digital world? Talking about the occlusal plane, the midline, the head position, how the head position is going to be in the virtual space on that computer. Because whenever you have an analog articulator, I would say most of the cases for full arc rehabilitation is not going to be exactly the same when you transfer it one-to-one into the oral cavity. Simply because the registration procedure, starting with the phase po transfer and all of these stuff, they might not be accurate. And we are discussing this in the paper. And then again, we are presenting the whole thing on an evidence-based manner.
Sounds very interesting, and it's a little bit different than the other articles, and that's why I was also happy to include your strategy or your approach to treatment planning using a little bit more digital technologies than the others, but basically at the end, everybody's doing a mix of trying to get the best tools to get an efficient result. And but again, so you were talking about the issue. So where is this friction point? Where do you see the friction point? So we did not talk. Everybody else was talking a lot and spending a lot of time talking about mock-ups. So what is the role of mock-ups and showing the result to the patient in your treatment planning workflow?
We also stress on the implementation of mock-ups as a tool for communicating with the lab in terms of preparing for the temporaries or in terms of preparing for the future work that needs to be done. It's also a tool to assess whether, as we have learned from Mauro and Jörg Stroop from their books, that the incisal edge position is essential in setting everything else. So for every single patient, we go usually with a mock-up. But of course, this will help us not only in setting the length of the teeth, but also the cervical position, whether you need, in those cases with excessive worn dentition, whether you would like to lengthen the teeth coronally or cervically or a combination. And this, with a mock-up, it would be easier to help you, or as a tool to help you make that decision. But the further processes, of course, this is one of the first steps in terms of the treatment or even the diagnosis, but the next steps are going to be guided as we go through the whole workflow. The problem that I see today is the communication. I mean, again, you are taking impression, let's say conventional approach, you are making by the registration, you are making a Facebook transfer, you're mounting the models in the articulator, and then you go ahead and try to deliver your temps, for example, after you prepare the teeth and you see they're not fitting or they're not completely off. We know that the mounting was not correct. We know that they are different. We have learned over the years now that there are additional parameters that we need to consider in order to have that these mounted models in the analog approach represent the real situation. And the same thing happens with the digital approach, but we have now tools that will help us to make that registration in a more accurate manner. Still pending for the publications of the studies about this topic, but our clinical experience showed that they are working in a very good way.
Yeah, because my question was related to, I see there are like waypoints in a treatment planning workflow. And one of the waypoints that I have figured out that is really in common with all these is the try-in to the patient. It's like if you go to get a suit done by a tailor, so individual tailored suit. So he measures your body and everything, but then you have to make a try-in. And then you see where the small things are still missing. And I see this should be an information for everybody, regardless what tools you use. You come to a stage where you put all your findings, all your information in the patient mouth, and then you have to check.
Yeah.
So today, I think you agree with me that today we are still at the same point as the tailor who's doing you a custom suit. So he can use all the tools. Now you can even use your smartphone, and the smartphone takes a picture of your body with all information of your neck, of your posture, everything, and creates like a tailored T-shirt or whatever. But still, it's not 100%. So I think also in dentistry, we are not yet at the point that we can say recording all information with digital tools or with whatever tools we have, we still cannot get 100% of the final result. We do the try-in, we get closer maybe over the time, but still need to do some adjustments. So you agree on that?
I would say if I've been asked this question 10 years ago, I would say, yes, I fully agree. But we learned and what we are implementing is the so-called prototyping. And for this prototyping, this is a complete, it's like designing a new car. You do the design, you test drive the design. Once that is perfect, then you move on to the final restoration or final rehabilitation. This is what I've been doing. And also a lot of other colleagues are doing the same. So we basically design it on the computer, the virtual design of the final thing, and then we reproduce it or produce it out of let's say a PMMA-based material. It will be milled, whether it's printed or milled, but mostly it's printed. We go into the oral cavity, we deliver these prototypes, and we test drive not only the aesthetics, but at the same time, we test drive the phonetics, we test drive the function, and also the oral hygiene, whether the patient is able to clean properly or not. Now, we can leave this prototypes between 2 weeks and 8 weeks in the oral cavity. If you adjust the occlusion, you discover that the teeth need to be longer a little bit. You can do all of these things, take them out, scan them, and then superimpose or fuse all of these changes that you have implemented in the analog version into the final design. And then you can produce the final work, and then it works. This is the way we see it, that it works nowadays.
Super. So I'm really excited and looking forward to all the feedbacks we will have from our readers of our next issue. So last question before we go to the closing remarks. Wael, where will digital dentistry be in 10 years from now? What do you think? I'm asking this question because 30 years ago, when I started with CEREC, I thought that today we would be way further than we are today. So I'm a little bit disappointed where digital dentistry has come in 30 years. What do you think will it be in 10 years?
I mean, if you look back at just the International Dental Show, the IDS, that happens every 2 years, you can see the explosion of technologies that are increasing every 2 years and introducing new things to the market. So not speaking about Sirona, because there are other companies that are focusing on this. We have more than 35 intraoral scanners, manufacturers worldwide now, and we have more than 45 virtual treatment planning software for implants available worldwide. 10, 15 years ago, we had just one. So it's more available, more accessible. We have software. The competition is very important because this is what drives the company to become better on the other. Now, every product has its advantages and it has shortfalls or issues, but it's up to the clinician to decide which one to go for. Now, you ask me how dentistry will look like in 10 years from now, and I can say the future is in artificial intelligence. And it is happening actually right now here in Boston. We have 4 companies so far working on algorithms that are related to dentistry. And you can have automation. The automation will be like this. I can quote, for example, Glidewell, where they have a laboratory and their headquarters in California, where you as a dentist, you send your intraoral scan and your data or your impression will go into an automated scanner that will scan your impression, digitize that impression, the physical one, create the STL files. The STL files will go automatically to a design computer that is not being controlled by any person. So it will automatically generate the tooth or the restoration, the crown, let's say, for you, and then will export the data into the milling unit. And the milling unit is a huge one where it will automatically mill the crown, take it out, it will go on the production street. And then at the end, then you find a human there who's sitting, it's a lab technician, quality control. And they are producing 5,000 crowns a week because of this single workflow that they're implementing. And the whole thing is a AI-based system that is using big data to create and become better. So for manufacturing, we have AI now. For diagnostics, we have AI. Several companies are working on automatic recognition of pathologies, recognition of anatomic structures, automatic segmentation of anatomical structures like teeth or something like this. I can tell you that there's another company or software developer that can take a CBCT and create automatically 2 cephalometric images from the right and left side without a human intervention and give you all the measurements that are ready for the orthodontist. And all of this is based on AI. So I see it as very exciting because all of the components of the digital workflow are being now worked upon using AI, and there's a lot of development happening in the background.
Super. So I hope that all this technology will be also accessible to a lot of colleagues around the globe. So because so far, I think one of the issues is also lack of accessibility of technology. So what we see also in other areas, not only in dentistry. But thank you, Wael, for this great insight of digital dentistry, and this really makes us curious. So I was able to read your article already and also your book, but a lot of people did not have the chance to preview all this information. And I'm sure this next issue on treatment planning, also with your input, will be a very special one, one that many people will take also as reference to. And then we maybe in some years we have to redo all this and watch back what we did today, and find out what we could have done better, or what. But that's why I ask you the question about what will be in 10 years. So we will see and find out. So thank you very much, and maybe a last word. So this banner scrolling to motivate our viewers to follow us not only on Facebook but also on our new established Instagram account, the first peer-reviewed Instagram account, and it's growing. And you have to watch out also this. You will see also this live episode not only on Facebook, on YouTube, and also on Instagram. While maybe some last words to our potential readers of the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry, because the whole thing, these live interviews, is also dedicated to promote the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry. So what is your final words on the journal from your side?
I think that anyone who's looking for a high quality dentistry, high quality clinical dentistry, should be a part of that journal. It entails the best clinicians in the world, and many friends are there. I have to congratulate you, Alessandro, and the whole team and the whole editorial board and the associate editors for coming up with such a wonderful journal. And I think disseminating high quality dentistry through this journal and all the events, the related events, whether the European Academy of Aesthetic Dentistry or the American Academy of Aesthetic Dentistry, I think this is something great that is being done, and the journal reflects the core of these academies that are supporting and coming up with such a high quality dentistry. So again, I congratulate you and the whole team, and wish you and everyone, continue to wish you, actually, you and your families and beloved ones, safety and healthy through these times, and look forward to see everyone again in person, not virtually.
Yes. Although we have talked about artificial intelligence and everything, yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to meet many of you in person in the near future. And it looks promising that this maybe we will not come back to or the world will not come back to what it was before, but maybe we have learned out of all this crisis to create a little bit a better world. And also in digital dentistry, I'm looking forward to your input to this special issue on treatment planning. Wishing you and your family all the best, all people out there. Have a great evening, have a great week, and if there's any questions, we will be there to answer your questions on all channels. And at the latest when the journal will come out very soon. Thank you very much, Wael, and take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful